Okay, so now that we have learned to solve two-step equations, the next logical step is solving multiple step equations, which seems a little scary because that means there's lots of steps to them, but I think you can handle it. So we're going to go ahead and remember we're going to just stick with the nice little list. This is going to be item number 14, whose title is going to be solving multi-step equations. So there's going to be at least 3 steps in solving these equations, which when you were working with fractions last time, you kind of had to do that anyway. So again, I would like you to make sure you have written the objective and defined all the vocabulary terms. The objective should be something along the lines of, I can solve multiple step equations, and you will know that you know what you know when you have passed the quiz at 100%. So after you've written your objective, you're going to make a little line to show that the math is actually going to start. You are going to make sure that you have defined your vocabulary. If you have not defined your vocabulary, you should stop the video and define that vocabulary now. Okay. So here is what we're going to be looking at. First, we're going to say 4x plus 1 over 5 is equal to 5. Okay, because there is not division in the everywhere, this is division, this is not a giant fraction. This is just considered division. If there was a fraction over here, I would probably consider this fractions, but since there's not, and that would be our first step, right? Are there fractions? In this case, there are not fractions. If there was fractions in both sides of the equal sign, or that word did not have the same denominator, I would probably go ahead and treat this as a fraction. But since there aren't, this is not a fraction. So nope, there's no fractions. So then I'm going to take my second step is going to be, well, what are we going to get rid of first? So everything is divided by 5. This whole thing is divided by 5. So what is affected first? So the most effect, right? What has the most effect? The most effect is the 5 because it affects the entire rest of this equation. So since it affects most of the equation, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of that. So let's take this and we're going to multiply everything on both sides by 5, which I guess is technically going to be treating it sort of like a fraction, right? Since these two cancel out, that's going to leave us with 4x plus 1 equal to 5 times 5, which is 25. Now we have a nice two-step equation. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add or subtract, right? If the constant is by itself, well, the constant is by itself. That constant is 1. And that constant is added to 4x. So we're going to subtract that from the left side. And we're also going to subtract it from the right side because whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. This leaves us with 4x is equal to 24. Now in our little list, we're going to, oops, this was a 3. And now we're going to multiply or divide to isolate the variable. Now, when we look at that, the variable we are trying to isolate is going to be x, and x has a 4 attached to it. That 4 is attached by multiplication. In order to get rid of multiplication, we're going to do division. We're going to divide both sides by 4 because what we do to one side, we must always do to the other. That's going to leave us x on this side as these two cancel out, and 24 divided by 4 is going to be equal to 6. So our answer here is x equals 6. So we're going to go through these easy, simple steps, and we're going to make sure that we finish it out. Okay? So we are then going to deal with another one because, you know, we like to do this by example so that we can see what we're doing. It's easier to work through the problems than just talk about it. So what if we have 5m plus 13 all divided by 2, which is equal to 1? Okay, well, if we look at our little list, are there fractions? Well, technically there's not fractions because there's not fractions in everything. So I am going to see what has the most effect. Well, I see that that 2 is affecting the whole top equation in the numerator. So I'm going to go ahead and want to get rid of that 2. That 2 is connected to that equation by division. So I'm going to multiply everything on the left and the right side by a 2 because, of course, what we do to one, we must always do to the other. That is going to make these two cross cancel, and that's going to leave us with 5m plus 13 equal to 2. After that, we're going to say we're going to add or subtract if the constant is by itself. Well, is the constant by itself? It sure is, so we're going to subtract because 13 is added to 5m, and the opposite of addition is subtraction. So we're going to subtract 13 from both sides. That's going to leave us with 5m equal to negative 11, sorry, because negative 13 plus 2 is negative 11. Now we're going to do what? Well, the 5 and the m are attached with multiplication, and the fourth step says multiply or divide to isolate the variable. So we're going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 5. And that's going to leave us with m is equal to negative 11 over 5. And that's honestly as far as we need to go. So that's going to be if there are an equation divided by a number, or in that case, okay, where it kind of looks like a giant fraction, but it's really a giant division sign. You're also going to come across a couple of different things. One of those things is going to be combining like terms. So here's a little section called combining. We're going to combine like terms, and that means we're going to put all the x's together or all the y's together generally. Okay, so in this case, and this should be a pretty review of what we've learned before, we have 6x plus 3 minus 8x equals 13. Okay, well, the first thing I can do is, well, first of all, there's not any fractions. And now I'm going to say, well, I have these combine these like term guys, right? So I think I'm going to need to go ahead and put those two together. Okay, so if I'm going to combine like terms, that is now going to become before our adding and subtracting. So I'm going to say, let's look here, and this 6 and this minus 8x, those are both x's, so I can combine those together. So if I pull these out and I combine them together, let's actually line them up first. It'll help me look at that. So I'm going to have 6x minus 8x plus 3 is equal to 13. Well, that's easier to look at. Now I can see that that's 6x minus 8x, which just becomes negative 2x, plus 3 is equal to 13. Well, now I see that there's a little variable stuck out here, so I can subtract that, not variable, I'm sorry, there's a constant stuck out here. I'm going to subtract that constant, get rid of that guy. Now I have minus 2x, or negative 2x, is equal to 10. And then I want to get rid of that negative 2 because it's attached to that x, and I don't want that x to be attached anymore. So I'm going to, because it's multiplied, I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 2. And that's going to leave me with x is equal to negative 5. Okay, and that's kind of where we're going to deal with these combining like terms. The terms that are the same, you're going to combine. Okay, so we have okay, so that's going to be a step that we're going to add into our frame of reference here. Okay, there's also something else that might come up that would be a little bit difficult, and that would be, what about the distributive property? This is a continuation of item number 14, right? So let's see, what if we have, and we've kind of been dealing with the distributive property on and off already. So what if we have the distributive property in here? What are we going to do? Well, we can, what if we had 9 equals 6 minus x plus 2? And you're going to come up with this minus, a big parentheses, a lot. Remember how we've talked about we have the negative, or we have numbers that we just don't see, but they're there. In this case, this is like a negative 1 times x plus 2. So we're going to need to distribute that negative sign, or that negative 1, to both of the things that are inside the parentheses. So that's going to be 9 is equal to 6, and this is negative 1 times x, so minus x, and negative 1 times 2, which is negative 2. Okay, then we can combine like terms. So first we distributed, and second we're going to combine like terms. And the like terms here, well, there's only one x, but there are definitely 2 constants, and we can combine them just like we can combine variables. So now we have a 9 is equal to negative x plus 6 minus 2, because it's nice to line those up together. That's going to give us, a 9 is equal to negative x. When we add those together, we get plus 4. Now we can go ahead and finish this out by subtracting negative 4. That's going to leave us with 5 is equal to negative x. Remember, we just talked about having that imaginary number, that when we don't write, but it's there. So that's the same as saying negative 1 times x. So we're going to divide both of the sides by a negative 1 to get rid of that negative sign, leaving us with negative 5 is equal to x. So we distributed, we combine like terms, then we add or subtract, and last we multiplied or divided, right? And those are the steps to just getting that x by itself. Okay, let's use one last example, and it's going to stick all that we've learned together. So you have 4 times x plus 1 plus 2 times x minus 7 is equal to 50. Well, first of all, are there any fractions? No, so we don't have to deal with that. Next, we need to distribute. So we're going to distribute this 4 to both the terms inside the parentheses here, and this 2 needs to be distributed to both of the parentheses in here. So that's going to leave us with 4 times x plus 4, because that's 4 times 1, plus 2 times x, which is 2x, minus, because there's a minus sign here, 2 times 7, which is 14, all equal to 50. Now we can do some combining like terms. I know that these are x's and these are x's, so those will be 4x plus 2x. And we also have a constant of 4 and a constant of negative 14, so we'd say plus 4 minus 14 is equal to 50. As we continue to combine our like terms, we're going to say this is 4x plus 2x, which is 6x, and plus 4 minus 14, which becomes a minus 10, all equal to 50. Then we're going to add 10 to both sides because there is a constant hanging out by itself. This becomes 6x is equal to 60. And we divide both sides by 6 because 6 is attached to the x by multiplication, and the opposite of multiplication is division. X is now equal to 10, and that becomes our answer. Now, if you want to watch some more examples, you can do that in the Canvas videos. If you think you're ready to go ahead and log on to Canvas and do your homework and take the quiz. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me or email me. Otherwise, good luck.